I've imagined countless scenarios for our reunion with my ex. At the very least, I'd be wearing a chic designer dress and holding an elegant LV bag, flashing a haughty smile as I taunted. So, how did you end up in such a mess? Instead, here I am, having just dislocated my jaw after an argument with a woman in the neighborhood who doesn't leash her dog. I'm drooling and being rushed to the emergency room, where the attending doctor is none other than my ex, Louis Nelly. Salome Evans, how did you end up like this? He's sus, cutting straight to the point. He's stealing my lines. My vision blurs with humiliation. I need to get a different doctor, and I need it now. Unable to speak because of the dislocated jaw, I still manage to convey my anger. You're cursing me? Louis raises an eyebrow, and his tone is as cool and detached as when I broke up with him in a fit of rage. I shut my eyes, refusing to look at him or speak, but that infuriating voice keeps coming from behind me. Doctor, is Salome's condition serious? Should she be hospitalized? I don't even need to look to know that Peter, my male assistant, is making a clueless face. Oh, great. As if anyone needs to be hospitalized for a dislocated jaw. Is he trying to turn this into a year-long hospital stay to pursue his own agenda? When I hired an assistant, I specifically wanted a woman, no men. Yet, I ended up with Peter, who seems only interested in men. Louis's mood visibly chills. I open my eyes and find him glaring at me with eyes as cold as ice. Despite his mask, before I can react, I feel his bare hands touching my saliva-covered chin. I'm momentarily disoriented. Can I report him for unhygienic practices? Louis's face remains impassive, but his eyes are fixed on my chin. He frowns slightly and asks, have you ever dislocated your jaw before? No, my Salome. Before I can shake my head, Peter, eager to talk to Louis, interrupts with his obsequious voice. Louis's brow furrows deeper, cutting him off with a tone that brooks no argument. Non-essential personnel, out. But I'm a family member. Get out. If my jaw weren't in his hands, I'd be tempted to leave just because of his icy demeanor and increasingly cold tone. Peter, like a scolded puppy, exits obediently and closes the door behind him. The room is left with just the two of us. Feeling his scrutinizing gaze, I instinctively shrink back. My eyes drift to the familiar plum candy on his desk, and I suddenly snap back to reality. We've been broken up for 3 years. Why should I be scared now? My confidence surges, and I straighten my back, glaring defiantly at him. I'm not afraid of you. You were precious when I liked you. Now you're just a piece of trash. Staying in this position is exhausting. Are you going to treat me or not? So, this is why you dumped me. Louis's tone carries a note of accusation. His hand remains on my chin, his eyes full of complicated emotions. What's this about? What's he getting at? 2 seconds later, I realize with shock that he's misunderstood my relationship with Peter. I remember how I cried like a fool when I dumped him, desperately clinging to the last shred of dignity, and claiming I have found someone better. He's the one who's unfaithful now, and he's trying to blame me just because I can't talk right now. He conveniently forgets his own actions. Seeing my agitation, Louis seems to relax with a low, satisfied laugh. His eyes hold a dangerous gleam I'd never seen before. It's okay. I forgive you. As he speaks, his fingers gently caress my chin with a lingering, affectionate touch. Forget about forgiveness. Who do you think you are to forgive me? You've got some nerve acting all high and mighty after cheating on me. Even though I don't fully understand his intentions, it doesn't stop me from cursing him out of my head. I came here for medical treatment, not to deal with this nonsense. Louis appears to be in a better mood now. After feeling my chin for a while, he suddenly inserts his thumbs into my mouth, turning them around. My mind goes blank. I instinctively revert to the habits we had when we were together, on hand half embracing his shoulder, the other nervously gripping his shirt. Inside, I'm screaming, this is harassment. I have to report this. Louis, following my lead, leans closer and whispers seductively in my ear, be a good girl and break up with him. Okay. I'm still trying to process what he means. Unexpectedly, he presses on my molars, uses his fingers to manipulate my jaw, and then pops it back into place with a click. Louis doesn't pull his hand away, and I'm left stunned, his fingers still in my mouth. It was that simple. Then, thinking about his previous comment, my anger flares. What a scumbag. He never spoke to me this kindly when we were together. Now he's treating me like his little pet. I bite his fingers in frustration, grinding them, but I don't bite hard. Not because I'm reluctant, but because I'm afraid he might accuse me of trying to extort money from him. As I seethe with anger, Louis chuckles deeply, clearly enjoying my distress. Can crazy people really be doctors now? His laughter sends shivers down my spine. I wasn't joking. Break up with him and come back to me, Louis says, pulling his hand out and wiping my saliva away. his eyes filled with undeniable warning. Now that I can talk, I need to keep my posture high. I fold my arms and give a cold, sarcastic laugh, ready to retort, "Heh, you think. Louis, the emergency services just called. There's a major car accident victim coming in. We need to prepare." A nurse bursts in urgently, her upper body leaning into the room. "Wait for me here. I have more to say. And give me your phone number." Louis looks at me for a second, says this, and rushes out. "Wait for you to break up with me and then betray me again. Dream on." I drag Peter, who's still moaning over Louis, out of the hospital. On the way back, my anger simmers as I grind my molars. From the very first day back in the country, I imagine reuniting with him in style. Instead, reality gave me a huge blow. "Salome, he's so handsome. Do you know him? Can you give me his contact info?" Peter's still jabbering away. "What are my chances of pursuing him?" "Ha, I pursued him for a whole year. Given your rough exterior and girlish crush, he's lucky he hasn't called the cops on you yet. Wayne Henry, if you bring him up again, I'll post your real name on social media so everyone knows." I give him a smile full of malice. "Ah, how can you do this? My name isn't Wayne Henry. It's Peter." "Peter." Predictably, Peter lets out a scream. Thinking about the silly things I did while pursuing him back in college, I'm even more irritated. This guide is pushing my patience to the limit. "Fine, let's all go down together. Do you have a grudge against him? Why do you hate him so much?" "It's ruining my chances with him." Peter insists. "Is there a grudge?" "Maybe there is. Because of him, I left everything behind and cut off all connections with him, not to study abroad in style, but to escape and heal myself. Seeing him again makes it feel like none of that past pain is really over. He's my ex-boyfriend." "Ah," Peter screams again, and the car feels like it's on the verge of losing control. "If you make another sound, I won't say any more," I warn, narrowing my eyes. If there's a curse in my relationship with Louis Nelly, it's because I was drawn to his looks. I still remember the first time we met, just days after university started. I was with my roommate, looking for her boyfriend at the neighboring university. Louis stood there, with his eyes slightly downcast. His white shirt collar was slightly open, and his tall, sturdy frame exuded strength. Even his slightly worn canvas shoes didn't diminish his presence. He was a total catch, never having experienced love before. I dropped all pretenses and gathered every bit of information about him. I learned he came to school alone, worked part-time off campus every week, lived in a rented room outside the school, and wore the same few outfits. His cafeteria meals were always Modestone meat, one vegetable, and one soup. The university girls called him the impoverished school prince from a novel. Despite this, my rivals were numerous. To make a lasting impression, I spent $20 to have a 10-meter banner made, which I hung at the school gate on their campus day, even signing my name boldly. The banner read, "Louis Nelly, sorry for the inconvenience, but I'm especially fond of you. Without your permission, Solemn Evans." Watching his face turn from red to black, with a hint of frustration in his voice as he called my name. See, he remembered. From then on, I became famous at their university. My roommate kept praising me as the fiercest girl at UCL. If you like someone, you have to make sure they know it. That's what my dad always taught me. Ever since I was little, I've heard him brag countless times about how he managed to win over my mom by initially making a high-profile confession, and then persistently pursuing her until she finally agreed, leading to my birth. Taking after my dad, I've made it a daily routine to block him in various ways. I would get up before dawn to buy the amazing char siu buns from our school cafeteria and push past his many admirers just to deliver them to him. I would dig into his class schedule and find ways to sneak into his big lecture halls to sit next to him. I was probably the most persistent in chasing him. Louis Nelly once advised me to focus more on my studies and not waste my energy on these pursuits. When he realized I wasn't going to listen, he stopped paying attention to me, but that was fine because I could still see his face every day. And from my dad, I learned a new trick, finding every possible gap to insert myself into his world. I found out where Louis Nelly lived, barged into his life with a strong attitude, because he was too polite to refuse me, and then continued to come and go from his life openly for years. "Louis, this toothpaste works really well, so I brought you a tube." "Louis, I saw these slippers on sale at the supermarket, so I bought a pair for each of us." "Louis, I just learned this new recipe today. You should try it." Most of the time, he didn't show strong resistance or refusal. The only time he got truly angry was when I spent a month's worth of living expenses on a pair of AJ sneakers that many guys were lining up to buy as a birthday gift for him. He didn't say a word to me for 3 days because of it. Every time I bought something before, he would give me just the right amount of money. I knew about his situation, so I would always accept it for his pride, and then quote a lower price next time. Initially, when he heard the price, He would just stare at me without saying anything. His gaze seemed to pierce through my intentions, and there were several times when I almost felt guilty and wanted to confess. I thought this special birthday situation might be different, but he still handed me the money a few days later, increasing his already challenging financial pressure. After that, I began helping him with tasks like saving seats at the library, doing his laundry, and learning to cook his ways to win him over. One day, after being turned down once again when I offered to do his laundry, I sat all day cross-legged on the couch eating grapes he had washed, watching him finish his laundry and then scrub his shoes with his long fingers submerged in the basin. "Do you really like me this much?" Louis Nelly asked without looking up. His tone was as casual as asking why I hadn't gone home yet. I was so surprised that I almost forgot to chew the grape I had just popped into my mouth. I was a bit doubtful that I might have misheard him. Chewing a few bites and swallowing with a hint of hesitation, I replied, "What? Even if I'm going to live in this cheap rental for years to come, you don't mind?" Louis Nelly looked up, his eyes reflecting either helplessness or amusement. I wasn't sure. "Yeah, well, I like you." He was someone I liked from the very beginning. "I have a few requests," Louis Nelly said, shaking the water from his hands and looking at me. I was so excited that I hugged the fruit plate in my lap tightly. "First, don't bother learning to cook anymore. It's a waste and it tastes terrible. I always end up with a stomachache after eating it." Louis Nelly rubbed his forehead with his index finger and continued, "I hope you can have your own friends in your own life and not always revolve around me. I know you have great design talent, so don't waste it." "Oh, sure, no problem. I'll agree to all your requests. Just give me a hug, please." I was so excited that I didn't really listen to what he was saying and interrupted him, my eyes shining as I reached out for a hug. Then I saw Louis Nelly smile. I realized that someone who doesn't usually smile looks like this when they don't like the first tender buds of spring emerging from melting snow, summer glaciers melting away, or winter plum blossoms blooming, making you feel all warm inside. I finally got what I wished for and nestled into his arms. I made a request that I thought was not too demanding, but he thought was excessive. "Can I get another kiss?" Seeing him lose his smile, shake his head in exasperation, and sigh inwardly, I realized I should have just leaned in for the kiss myself. Anyway, it's not like he was a stranger to me. I shouldn't have been so formal about it. It wasn't long before our first snowfall after that. We kissed by the lake at UCL. Our photos kissing made headlines on the forums of both universities plus 19th grad campus. Beauty had won over the campus heartthrob. Louis Nelly truly was a perfect boyfriend. Besides being busy with his studies, he had no faults. He tried his best to meet all my needs, tolerated my frustrations when I lacked design inspiration, remembered all my hobbies, and knew exactly what I liked to eat when I was upset, like plum candy and red sugar ginger tea during my period. He arranged everything in our lives so smoothly. I felt like I had captured the clear, gentle moon in the sky, keeping it all to myself and shining only on me. Like most couples in love, we went on dates, watched movies, visited amusement parks, and checked out various restaurants. Many corners of City B were filled with our footprints and memories. "Then what? Why did you go abroad after graduation?" Peter asked curiously as we pulled into the parking lot. Reliving the good times we had, I slumped back, feeling deflated. My head leaned against the seat, staring blankly at the car roof. Why did I go abroad? Because when I graduated, I thought we'd continue together. But then an outsider told me that Louis Nelly was just tolerating my pursuit. I reluctantly agreed to be with me. And now that we've graduated, he's breaking up with me to be free. As I thought about this, the supposed sense of resolution I had felt surged up again. My heart ached, my eyes warmed, and I raised a hand to cover my face, unable to speak further. "No, after 4 years of relationship, how could you believe an outsider's words?" Peter's voice grew urgent. "I couldn't find him. Peter, I couldn't find him." That person showed me a recording of his voice, and when I tried to contact him to verify, his phone was off. The rental had been vacated, and I couldn't reach him through classmates or teachers. My throat was dry, and each word felt like rolling through gravel. That's when I realized I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know where his home was, who his parents were, or who his friends were apart from those at school. With just a phone, we could be completely separated. Peter's emotion settled, and his gaze turned sympathetic. "Darling, don't be sad. If I ever see that scum again, I'll make sure to help you deal with him." "Really? Do you think I should go for a follow-up checkup in a few days? Will you come with me?" I smiled and teased him, noticing a hint of tears in his eyes. Go, go, go. Even if I can't beat him, I'll at least insult him." Salome Evans, stop laughing. It's so ugly. Peter, crying while pointing out my wounds, added, "Now that the studio has no business, and you've hired such an incompetent assistant, you're really struggling in both love and career. It's so tragic." The forced comforting smile and the tears that were about to fall both disappeared instantly. "Thank you so much." The cut was deep, leaving no escape route for me. After sending Peter away, I returned to my room alone, didn't turn on the lights, and sank into the couch. Since returning to the country and completing the studio work, I hadn't had a break for 2 full months. Whether I could attract clients for next week's opening event was urgent, and I was exhausted both physically and mentally. Seeing Louis Nelly again was completely unexpected, and his words kept echoing in my mind. "Forgive me." Why did he think he could say that? Did he think I was still the naive fool he could easily soothe with a few words? I could endure being laughed at for my hopeless longing, and could handle the unfamiliar environment and unfriendly eyes abroad on my own. How could Louis Nelly think a mere gesture would make me obediently return? At 20, Salome Evans saw the world through Louis Nelly's eyes. At 26, Salome Evans could do just fine without him. After letting out my emotions, the resulting chain reaction was, I didn't want to move, didn't want to remove my makeup, didn't want to change clothes. My eyelids grew heavier. Bang, bang, bang. I was jolted awake by the urgent knocking. My dry eyes opened, still a bit blurry, but the annoying knocking kept coming continuously. I checked the phone screen. It was 3:40 a.m. Who was it? How inconsiderate to disturb someone's peaceful sleep at this hour. I was already sore from sleeping on the couch and felt exhausted. Adding to my anger, I stomped to the door, grumbling, peeking through the peephole. Louis Nelly, how did he know my address? Since returning, I hadn't contacted any of our mutual friends, so did he pay to track me down? As I wondered, Louis Nelly's voice came from outside the door. Salome, I know you're in there. Open the door. No way. Let him keep knocking. I hoped the neighbors would complain and the security would take him away. Leaning against the door and feeling the vibrations from his knocks, my irritation started to fade. Salome, if you don't open the door, I'll hang a banner from when you were chasing me at the community entrance. Louis Nelly's deep and cold threat came through. How did the usually gentle and refined Louis Nelly become so shameless at the hospital? I nearly choked on my own anger, almost suffocating. With a dark face, I opened the door to find Louis Nelly with the same somber expression. I couldn't help but lean against the door and lazily taunt him. Louis Nelly, disturbing a patient this late at night. I could call the police. Salome Evans. His voice seemed to come from between his clenched teeth. Louis Nelly's eyes were tinged with red, and his dark, cold gaze seemed to gather a dangerous storm. I forced myself to meet his eyes, but my intuition screamed, danger. Escape quickly. Louis Nelly suddenly shoved aside the door frame and was about to close the door, but it wouldn't budge. He slammed his palm against the edge of the door, completely blocking my attempt to shut it. Damn it. This felt like being beaten up and then not being able to escape. As expected, Louis Nelly started to lose it. Am I trash? Why do you keep throwing me away? Over and over. Why? Louis Nelly's pitch-black eyes were like an unbreakable ink stain, filled with desolation. Before I could process why he was acting like this, Louis Nelly stepped forward. He wrapped one arm tightly around my waist and used the other to press my neck. Forcing my face into his shoulder, I could feel his body trembling slightly, as if he was nervous or scared. Louis Nelly, what's wrong with you? I couldn't break free from his iron-like arms, and his inexplicable questions were making me angry. So, when do you plan on leaving this time? Why do you want to leave? Break up with him. Okay, Louis Nelly's grip tightened, and he kept murmuring in my ear, let go of me. I was starting to think he might really be losing his mind. Even if we don't break up, just don't leave. Let me find you. Let's be like we were before. Okay. Don't just abandon me again. Louis Nelly's hands kept stroking my hair back and forth. I couldn't tell if he was comforting me or himself. We're already broken up. It's none of your business where I go. My feelings can't have a third party involved. What you're doing now is harassment. I really thought he had lost it. The once top student at the medical university, now playing this game. Even though I don't have a boyfriend yet. Still not okay. Louis Nelly's hands went back to my neck, speaking to himself in a whisper. The next moment, I felt a sharp pain on the side of my neck, and everything went dark. When I woke up again, I was lying on a soft, big bed. I was in comfortable lounger, and I rubbed my neck. I was stunned when I saw the room. It was the same apartment Louis Nelly had rented off campus, where we lived together for 2 years. It had been renovated, and a double bed nearly filled the small bedroom, but it was clear that it was regularly lived in. Very clean. Just as I was about to get up, I suddenly heard the sound of metal clinking on my ankle. I pulled back the covers to find a golden iron chain locked tightly around my right ankle, with a small golden padlock. Wait, when did Louis Nelly become so extravagant? Staring at the chain on my foot, I sat on the edge of the bed in a daze, feeling somewhat nauseated. Was this some kind of game prop he was using with that wealthy old woman? I yanked at the chain, and it made a clinking noise with the bed's footboard, which only made me more frustrated, causing me to pull harder. Awake. Louis Nelly's voice came from the door, interrupting my battle with the chain. Louis Nelly, are you out of your mind, restricting my freedom like this? If I pursued this, you'd end up in prison. Do you understand? Seeing him standing there, looking like none of this was his problem, only made me angrier. Jerk, cheater, moocher, pervert. It's okay as long as you send him a breakup text. I'll let you go. Louis Nelly walked over, holding my ankle and gently rubbing the reddened area from my earlier struggle. His eyes had the familiar look of concern, but I frowned. Something was off. Don't move. You'll get hurt as long as you break up with him and promise not to leave B City. I'll send you back right away. He placed my phone on the bedside table within reach. Why? Even though I was the one who suggested breaking up, you were the one who disappeared first. Later, I hesitated, thinking about what I had seen back then. See my distressed expression. Louis Nelly spoke softly. I never wanted to break up. I was rude that day, but when I went to find you the next day, you were already gone. Your phone was blocked, and all your classmates had stopped contacting me. Louis Nelly then squatted in front of me, lowered his head, and hugged me, burying his head against my waist. His voice was somewhat vague. Do you really hate me that much? Willing to leave everything behind and abandon me? Hearing Louis Nelly's accusations, tears started flowing uncontrollably as the past grievances resurfaced. You clearly don't want me. I choked up, and now you're still bullying me. I couldn't control my emotions any longer and began to sob uncontrollably. Louis Nelly lifted his head, his eyes still red, looking panicked. Don't cry. Please don't cry. He frantically wiped my tears, pulling out a small, delicate key from his pocket and trembling as he tried to unlock the padlock on my ankle. Let go, he said, throwing the lock aside the moment it was opened. I'm sorry. Don't cry. It was still the same Louis Nelly who was so attentive to me, but why did he talk behind my back like that, and willingly be kept by a wealthy old woman? Please, I really know I was wrong. Let's start over. Okay. But you're already tainted. After sobbing this, I couldn't help but cry for my lost love and the hardships I faced abroad over the years. What are you talking about? I haven't been with anyone else besides you. Louis Nelly's voice was puzzled. I stopped crying and looked at him with tearful eyes. So what really happened back then? Louis Nelly gently wiped my tears away and patiently waited for my response. You only admit to things when you're confronted with undeniable evidence. I wanted to believe him, but I thought of the recording. I grabbed my phone, played the recording, and tossed it to him roughly. Listen for yourself. Then I turned away, not looking at him anymore. The recording slowly played. Salome Evans, I'm Louis Nelly's friend, and I'm here to break up with you on his behalf. A somewhat young female voice, with a hint of arrogance. I haven't seen you, but I'll check with Louis Nelly. Next came the sound of me getting up and bumping into a chair. Don't be in a hurry to leave. It's normal that you haven't seen me. How many of his school friends have you met? I'm here to tell you that the reason he agreed to be with you was that you made too much noise. He had no choice but to stay with you to get through his college years peacefully. If it wasn't from Louis Nelly's own mouth, I wouldn't believe it. Our relationship is only known to us, so if you're just someone playing a prank, this ends here. Ha ha ha. Salome Evans, your confidence makes me feel sorry for you. Let's see what he has to say. The female voice's mocking tone grew stronger. Then there was a buzzing sound, followed by Louis Nelly's voice. I only ended up with her out of necessity, so you don't need to worry about her. I'll clarify things with her after she graduates. I can meet the conditions you mentioned. The recording ended there. Louis Nelly's three statements, while not explicitly naming names, made my heart tighten, leaving me feeling empty and frantic. Why couldn't you wait for me? I could explain. Louis Nelly's grip on the phone was so tight his hand turned white. After graduation, you kept avoiding me. I thought you were busy with your exams and internships. Even so, I wanted to hear you explain it to me in person. I tried to find you with this recording, but your phone was off, and you had moved out. How was I supposed to feel? I'm sorry. Louis Nelly's expression was one of painful restraint, his hard jawline seeming to shout with cold anger. And when you finally showed up, it was from a Cayenne, and you even kissed the old woman in the driver's seat. After saying that, I turned away, showing him only my back. God knows, my world had been shattered back then, and it was something I couldn't rebuild in a short time. Is there anything else? Louis Nelly asked. Anything else? What else could there be? From the start, your motives were impure. You used emotional coldness to make me break up with you, and worse, you didn't even find someone prettier or better than me. Instead, you became a fallen man. I was so enraged my head felt numb. After yelling at him, I turned away again. I didn't avoid you. I didn't get someone to break up with you, and I wasn't kept by a rich woman. Louis Nelly placed his hands on my shoulders and turned me around to face him. Can you please listen to me until the end? All right, go ahead. To make myself appear less easy to fool, I clenched the blanket tightly and forced myself to stay calm. I avoided you to plan a proposal. I wanted to marry you right away. Hearing this, I widened my eyes in shock. So what did I miss? Louis Nelly continued. As for getting someone to break up with you, that was impossible. At the time, my parents had just divorced. My dad didn't want me to become a doctor and pressure me to go abroad for an MBA and then come back to take over his company. He restricted my freedom, and he was the one who had the apartment returned. The woman in the Cayenne was my mother, who was arranged as a matchmaker by my father. I rejected her. That recording was made because I feared my dad would come back and disturb you. So I said those things in a panic, not realizing it would be recorded. I'm sorry. Those words ended up being hurtful evidence against me, and the woman driving the Cayenne, if I remember correctly, should be my mother. After hearing the last sentence, I realized I was just a joke. Is this it? Just this? I gave up such a big boyfriend back then, and all those years of romantic dreams were in vain. I stared blankly at Louis Nelly. You, with so much money, why do you look so poor? Were you afraid I was after your money? Also, you never introduced me to any of your friends. Louis Nelly rubbed his nose. Back then, I was actually poor. My dad only packed me 2 sets of clothes. My wallet, credit card, and phone were all confiscated. As for friends, they're just relationships based on mutual benefit, with no real close friends. I don't plan to take over the company in the future, so I don't want you to see the unpleasant side of this circle. I lay back, staring blankly into space. After my mom let me out, I had her take me to find you right away. I wanted to explain why I disappeared, but as soon as I saw you, you wanted to break up and told me you had another goal. I was so angry then. Louis Nelly's voice wavered when he mentioned breaking up, and he looked at me with hopeful eyes. It was my fault. I didn't try to comfort you immediately. I let you cool down on your own. It was all a misunderstanding. Can we start over? Actually, even if we hadn't broken up back then, we probably wouldn't be better off now. I suddenly spoke up. Why? Because of that man. Louis Nelly's lips pressed into a thin line. I wasn't in a relationship when I heard those things back then. I unconsciously believed them. Being with us was indeed me being persistent. I sat right up and looked at Louis Nelly. In this relationship, I wasn't that confident. I wasn't that composed. I often feared I wouldn't be able to keep up with you and that you leave me. Salome Evans. Louis Nelly's voice trembled. There are many people who look up to you. I'm just one of them. You're amazing. Better than many people. But I don't seem to be special to you. I'm expendable. Really, because I lack a sense of security. I smiled awkwardly as I said this. Louis Nelly looked even more upset. Love isn't your problem. Louis Nelly, I've had a good 3 years. Really. Even without you, I've been trying to shine. So let's move forward and not look back. Okay. At that moment, everything seemed to come full circle. It felt like this was a reaction I was supposed to have all along. Looking back, the things that couldn't be overcome were finally in the past. No, Louis Nelly said, looking at me seriously, answering each word carefully. You've always been great. Don't doubt yourself. It's my fault for not being good enough, making you doubt yourself. Louis Nelly held my face and pressed his forehead against mine. So this time, you keep shining, and I'll follow you. Seeing the surprise in my eyes, Louis Nelly smiled and said softly, "Can I cut in? Among your admirers, I want to be your top priority. Is this Louis Nelly?" I never even dared to dream this big. When Louis Nelly took me back, I was still in a daze. How did things end up like this? Salome Evans, what's wrong? You're spaced out this early in the morning. Peter waved his hand in front of my face. Tomorrow's the opening press conference. Why are you still zoning out? It's fine. You handle the venue and the reporters for tomorrow. I'll check the clothes in the warehouse and have Shasha confirm with the models one more time. Realizing the importance of tomorrow, I pushed Louis Nelly out of my mind. Tomorrow's outcome will decide your future salaries. We can't afford any mistakes. The press conference the next day went even smoother than I expected. The contractors and staff, whom I had painstakingly found and saved money for, were all exceptionally friendly and cooperative today. The number of reporters and their fame were also far better than I could have hoped for. Everyone, including me, exchanged astonished looks backstage. This was a stroke of luck. Salome, the president's office from AQ Group said they want to buy all the showpieces for collection. Are we going to make it big? Peter's iconic scream was already close before he even arrived, but it didn't end there. The backstage door opened, and Louis Nelly appeared with a bouquet of flowers, surrounded by reporters with their cameras. The flashing lights didn't dazzle me, but his white suit was so handsome it almost blinded me. I, who had just been passionately speaking at the press conference, now felt as nervous as a quail. Louis Nelly walked up to me and simply smiled warmly. He handed me the flowers, the ice blue roses I love most. Don't be scared. I'm not here to confess. I just couldn't wait to let everyone know I'm pursuing you. The anxiety I had been feeling subsided. From that day on, whenever Louis Nelly had free time, I'd always find him waiting at my doorstep with roses. His morning and evening greetings, gifts, and dinner dates were always. He constantly showed me his love, but he never asked me to agree to be with him. How long do you plan to pursue me? I couldn't help but ask after watching a movie together. I want you to be willing and no longer anxious. So, you decide the outcome. Okay, I'm fine with pursuing you for a lifetime, as long as you don't suddenly disappear. Louis Nelly lowered his head and rubbed my hair. I pressed my lips together and remained silent. Louis Nelly's lips curled up. He took my hand and walked over to the claw machine in the lobby, pointing to a cute but ugly stuffed toy. Do you like it? You always wanted to win a toy after watching a movie. He still didn't manage to grab the toy. A phone call from the hospital pulled him away. Seeing his apologetic expression, I urged him to leave quickly. Looking through the glass at the stuffed toy in the display case, I asked myself, actually, it's about time. The person I first liked at first sight always makes my heart race, no matter when I see him. As I waited for Louis Nelly's goodnight text, it was already the 99th message. I thought, maybe tomorrow, I'll get a perfect 100. I'm so easy to please. Louis Nelly must be getting a bargain. But this night, I didn't receive his usual goodnight message, no matter how late it was. At 1 a.m., my phone rang in the quiet night. Seeing the flashing number, I felt an inexplicable panic. I answered the call. Hello, is this a family member of Louis? A girl's voice, filled with complex emotions, said, a family member came to cause trouble tonight. Louis was stabbed while trying to save someone. The phone fell from my ear, and time and sound around me seemed to stand still. I could clearly hear my heart pounding, deafeningly loud. Louis has been taken to the operating room. His information only lists you as his family. Sitting outside the operating room, watching the bright surgical light, I heard the nurse's constant chatter. My nerves were stretched tight, unable to think. Why was there no security? Why did the doctor have to go save someone? I didn't know who to blame. I just watched the nurse's lips moving, but I couldn't hear. Why can't I hear? Speak louder. In my mind, countless shouts echoed from all directions. Why didn't I agree yesterday? If he doesn't make it out of this operating room today, for the first time in my life, I felt regret compared to life and death. Those emotions and grievances seemed insignificant. People around me kept trying to comfort me. I don't know how long it was, but finally, the operating room light went out. I sprang up and walked to the door. Fortunately, the attacker's knife was somewhat dull. The wound isn't very deep. Just watch for infection and replenish his blood. It's okay. It's okay. Thank goodness. My legs were weak, and I fell to the ground, unable to get up, crying and laughing uncontrollably. Louis Nelly was pushed out. His face, which had been rosy in the afternoon, was now extremely pale, and seeing this made my tears flow even more. I brought chicken soup and stir-fried pig liver, guided by my dad's advice. Today, I was going to make sure he got well nourished. When I entered the second floor of the inpatient department, the passing nurses were whispering and looking at me. This is Louis Nelly's girlfriend of 7 years. She's so beautiful. Yeah, well, I heard she went abroad after graduation. Long-distance relationships can last this long. It's really sweet. Hearing their discussion, I frowned for a moment. So, in his heart, we never really broke up. I opened the door to the ward, and a well-dressed middle-aged man was sitting by Louis Nelly's bed. The atmosphere between them wasn't very friendly. You're Salome Evans. The middle-aged man spoke, eyeing me with scrutiny. You've seen me already. You can leave, Louis Nelly said impatiently to the man, his face darkening. HMPH, for a woman. You've been showing me a long face for 3 years, and now you're using your position to threaten my assistant and make things easier for her studio. Louis Nelly, you're quite something. The man sneered at Louis Nelly on the bed, showing no sympathy. So, he must be Louis Nelly's father. I put down the food I was holding and understood why my studio had been running so smoothly. Louis Nelly was anxious and tried to explain, but ended up pulling on his wound, making his face turn even paler. Lie back down and don't move. I said this without caring about the expression on Louis Nelly's father's face. I took my time placing the food on the small table next to Louis Nelly's bed. Then, I sat her down on the other side, looking at his father with a stern face, and said with a smile, if my boyfriend doesn't help me, should he help other women? Louis Nelly's previously restless expression frowned, and he looked at me in disbelief, his eyes lighting up. Yes, everything of mine belongs to Salome Evans, Louis Nelly said cheerfully, not giving a glance to his father. You useless thing, I'm done with you. His father slammed the door and left. Salome Evans, does this mean what I think it means? Louis Nelly looked at me with hopeful eyes, full of uncertainty. Why, don't you want to admit it? I said, scooping a spoonful of chicken soup and holding it up to his mouth. Admit, seeing him nodding hurriedly. I watched as he drank the soup, with a furrowed brow and a slightly greenish face. Is it good? I added ginseng. It's very nourishing. You have to drink it all. I smiled. Okay, I'll drink it. Louis Nelly took the spoon from me mechanically. Watching him finish the chicken soup I brought, I was satisfied and tittied up. Good. I'll keep up the effort tonight. After I leave the hospital this time, can I visit your parents? Louis Nelly, who had been sipping chicken soup for days, suddenly spoke up. What is it? It came out of nowhere. A marriage proposal, Louis Nelly said with a no-nonsense attitude. After considering it for a moment, I noticed Louis Nelly's face looked even worse than after he finished his soup. Well, how about we wait until the new year? My parents are currently traveling around the world, I finally said. Can we at least get the marriage license now? Louis Nelly asked, not giving up. I stopped what I was doing and frowned at him. He pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed. I'm feeling a bit insecure. So, can we? I couldn't help but laugh. All right, since you're being so good, sweetheart, he said, really pushing his luck. Sweetheart, Louis Nelly continued. Enough. I suspect you've enrolled in some sort of crash course. Sweetheart, I haven't. Call me by my name. No, sweetheart. The story concludes here. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for the latest content and daily updates of new novels.